The two speakers for this are Kim Rodriguez and Bill Frost. Both Kim and Bill are with UC Ag and Natural Resources. Kim is also a forest advisor in addition to an administrative role she has coordinating our academic programs. Kim is a member of the Professional Foresters Examining Committee. She is a registered professional forester, worked in forestry in the north coast of California, and currently doing quite a lot of work in the central Sierra, in the Sierra Nevada, dealing with adaptive management issues and wildfire. So Kim will talk about the role of the professional in California. And the other speaker on this topic will be Bill Frost. Bill has also got a dual role as an administrator and a natural resource person. Bill is a certified range manager. He's also a natural resource and range advisor in cooperative extension. Bill's administrative role is he's the director of the research and extension centers, and you'll have a chance on the field trip, those of you going on the first two field trips, to see two of the facilities that Bill's responsible for, the Hopland and Sierra Station. Bill also serves on the licensing board for representing the range manager. So the two of them will talk about the role of the professional in California, and they'll go for 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll handle some questions afterwards. So if there are any questions specific to this topic, go ahead and use your chat feature as you've done in previous weeks, and we'll bring those in at the end of their presentation. So Bill and Kim, I'll turn it over to the two of you.
All right, thank you, Rick. So this is Kim Rodriguez, and I really appreciate being invited here today. Bill and I are going to split the presentation, as Rick said, and I'll present the first few slides related to the registered professional foresters. Bill will present the information around the certified rangeland managers, and then we have a few scenarios to work through that hopefully will generate some more dialogue and discussion, at least through the chat. So I just want to start with a disclaimer that as a registered professional forester in California, it's very clear to me that the work we do is so interdisciplinary that RPFs and or certified rangeland manager can't do it alone. We need to be working with a range of specialists, and as you all know, there's a lot of interdisciplinary work, so that's integrated and supported throughout the presentation as well. So the professional forester's law, you know, that's probably one of the driest places to start, but it's real important to start in a legal foundation and to recognize that one of the reasons it is founded in law is because there's a lot of public interest associated with the management of our rich forest resources in California. A lot of public benefits accrued from the watershed resources. And so the Professional Forester's Law actually preceded the Forest Practices Act in terms of really being recognized early in California how important having professionals manage these landscapes are for the public good, for the public benefits associated with them. And so rather than go into a lot of detail about the law, what Bill and I have done is just try to extract some of the key aspects of the law, and of course all of you can reference the more detailed law according to the sections listed there. I'm not sure if my arrow is not working. So, oh, down there, got it. So first of all, how do we even define forestry? And again, things that tend to be defined in law, people want it to be black and white, and the reality is that the role of the professional is navigating lots of gray areas. So we anchor as many definitions as we can, and then as professionals we navigate through those. So forestry as defined in the law here is very clear about both the science and the practice, the art, if you will, of managing forested landscapes. And the forestry practices that are specifically included in the law include the fuels management and forest protection aspects, which speakers today will be talking about how you can get cost share support for some of those things. timber growing and utilization. You talked earlier in the webinar about planting and the importance of maintaining forest inventories in different age classes, and forest economics. That's Rick's expertise, and he's presented some of the forest economic aspects, and then of course the watershed and scenic values. The practice of forestry applies only to those activities listed on the previous page that are undertaken on forested landscapes. So what the heck is a forested landscape, and how do we define that in a way that people will understand it, see it, and understand when, in fact, a registered professional forester or a certified rangeland manager might be needed, just in terms of founded in law. So forestry, as we think about it, is very inclusive, very interdisciplinary, and Eric Huff, who chairs the Professional Foresters Examining Committee and tracks the roster of the RPFs in California, wanted to make sure that it's clear that the majority of these registered professional foresters work somewhere in the CAL FIRE Foresters Practice Program or in private industry. And so there really is a direct connection between definitions and practice. Forested landscapes are defined as tree-dominated landscapes and the associated vegetation types on which they're growing. And it's stated in law that there's a significant stand of native trees in perpetuity. And again, you know, we can get into the questions about what in the heck does that mean, and when is a forest no longer a forest, and when is an RPF no longer required. And the scenarios we're going to work through and some of the application treatments, I think, will help bring those into focus. Because obviously words and legal definitions will leave gray areas, and it's really our responsibility as professionals to navigate those with an ethical compass.
So if we move on and talk about certified rangeland managers, the Board of Forestry has the authority to create certified specialists. And so beginning in 1994, they authorized a program that would allow for certified rangeland manager certificates to be obtained instead of a license as an RPF in order to actively manage some of our rangelands. So this program, the design is the same as for the registered professional foresters, is to protect the public interest in the area encompassed by this program. So in this case, we're talking about rangelands, but we have to remember that this program, the same as for registered professional foresters, only pertains to forested landscapes. So there are many types of rangelands in California where the Certified Rangeland Manager program does not apply. So again, it's only to those landscapes that are forested landscapes. The way the process is set up is that the Board of Forestry is given the California Pacific section of the Society for Range Management oversight of the program, and they actually handle all aspects of the program up through notifying the Board of Forestry on who is qualified to be licensed as a certified rangeland manager. So this program is a collaborative effort of the CalPAC section of the Society for Range Management, together with the Board of Forestry and the Professional Foresters Examining Committee. Certified rangeland managers, similar to rangeland managers across the state, but apply scientific principles to what we call the art and science of rangeland management. There are two definitions in the law. One is rangelands, which is landscape supporting grass, shrub, and savanna vegetation types, and range as being land grazed by livestock. Those two in this setting, though, are still under the context that this only applies to forested landscapes within California. So the most common rangeland that we work with are the oak woodlands or the oak savannas. This does not apply to landscapes such as annual grassland. If it's pure annual grassland, it's outside the law, and a certified rangeland manager program does not apply. This CRM program, as we said, is a service provided by CalPAC Society for Range Management, and is intended to demonstrate the expertise required to practice as a professional rangeland manager. Currently, we have 77 licensed certified rangeland managers in the state. So again, this is a fairly new program since 1994, less than 20 years. We are regularly adding a few licensed CRMs every year, but there are far fewer than you would see on the registered professional foresters list. The criteria for becoming a certified rangeland manager, there are minimal educational needs. The most common way of meeting those is a degree in rangeland management or courses, a specified set of courses. However, there are a number of educational opportunities you can undertake outside of the university setting or in cooperative extension courses, online courses offered either from California institutions or other states' institutions, NRCS programs, and there are a variety of other educational opportunities you can take advantage of to meet that minimal educational need. There is an experience requirement, the 5 years of qualifying experience, at least part of which needs to be working in a California rangeland type. The experience has to be experience that is related to rangeland management. So 5 years of qualifying rangeland management experience. And then there are ethical standards. There's a code of ethics that are that have to be followed, similar to the Registered Professional Forester program. So this licensing is granted by the Board of Forestry. So after the other requirement I should have added in was there is an exam that must be passed in order to qualify as a certified rangeland manager. So there's the experience, the educational needs, the ethical standards, and then a qualifying examination. Again, similar to the Registered Professional Forester requirements. Once all those are met, the Society for Range Management, our California Pacific section, actually qualifies you as a certified rangeland manager. However, that has no standing in the state until you're licensed by the Board of Forestry. And so the next step is adherence to the requirements of becoming licensed, which basically is fulfilling the society's requirements and then applying for the license and paying a licensing fee. Only those people that are licensed as certified rangeland managers can claim to be certified rangeland managers in California legally, and some of the activities we'll talk about require that license. If you go to our Society for Range Management website, and we'll have that information later, you'll see that there's a longer list of certified rangeland managers than there are licensed certified rangeland managers. There are people working for our federal agencies that want to demonstrate their professional qualifications and become certified, but have no need to become licensed because all of their professional activity is on federal lands.
So Bill, just to back up a little bit, there's a question in the chat about clarifying the statement about whether certified rangeland managers are authorized to cover annual grasslands or not.
Okay. So the wording is important. A license as a certified rangeland manager is required by the state to, and we'll get through what some of the tasks and the responsibilities are, but they're required when working on forested landscapes. So the current laws that created both the registered professional foresters and the certified rangeland managers, those laws do not cover non-forested landscapes. And so if it's truly an annual grassland, then it would not fall under the law, and therefore certified rangeland managers are not required legally to conduct rangeland management activities on annual grasslands. So it's a legal requirement as put forth by the state laws.
So hopefully that answered the question, but if not, let us know, because we'll have plenty of time for that kind of interaction, so thank you. Thanks, Bill.
So there's often confusion in certified rangeland managers because the Society for Range Management, so the parent society, the national society, also has a certified professional in rangeland management and a certified rangeland management consultant designation. Neither one of those designations have legal standing in California, and it's only people that are certified, licensed as certified rangeland managers in California, those that have gone through the CalPAC section process and are licensed by the Board of Forestry, though the only people that are licensed to practice in California on forested landscapes, and the only ones that can legally say that they are a certified rangeland manager in California. So moving on to some of the tasks, and these have been identified either through the Board of Forestry activities or through some guidance given by the Attorney General's office. But the tasks associated with rangeland management include, you can see the list, but it's vegetation management, including invasive species management, reintroduction of desirable species, improvement of economic viability, mitigation of potential environmental effects. And it goes on, improving and maintaining watershed function, rangeland inventories and assessments, recommendations regarding prescriptive grazing, conservation efforts, and so on, and developing or implementing rangeland management plans. So those are the range of tasks, and you'll see that we put, it's not limited to these, but those are some of those that have been highlighted by a Board of Forestry task force and also reiterated by some guidance from the Attorney General's office.
So, as I mentioned when I was talking about the legal definitions, there's obviously a lot of gray areas, and being a member of the Professional Foresters Examining Committee for the last several years, we've often had some lively discussions with folks who work, especially in these oak woodland areas or the urban-rural interfaces, in terms of when is a registered professional forester really legally required, and as Bill just covered, some of the nuances of when a certified rangeland manager is required. So ultimately, laws and regulations are not going to replace sound, ethical, professional judgment, and all of us working on these landscapes in whatever capacity we have, whatever certifications we have, ultimately need to be thinking about that professional judgment and experience. And I'd just like to share that when I was working on the North Coast in Humboldt and Del Norte counties and working with non-industrial private forest landowners, the majority of those landowners that I worked with had forested landscapes with a lot of active grazing and rangeland management going on. And so there's always these interrelationships, and I had to work with a lot of folks that helped me as an RPF understand some of the grazing implications. So again, I think working together across professional fields is the ultimate goal. And if you're in doubt and you're practicing without a registered professional forester's license yourself or without a certified rangeland manager's license, just seek from the roster that will give you a link to folks in your area you might work with. And I also wanted to let you know that some of the supportive documents that Rick can make available to you on the website, the Board of Forestry has adopted policies 11 and 12, which go into a lot more detail about clarifying where these professional boundaries are and how to better navigate them. So those are really great references whenever you're in doubt. And I'd really strongly encourage you to think about looking at those whenever there's a question or concern. And so Bill mentioned some of this, and I just wanted to emphasize that, landowners, private non-industrial landowners working in California have some specific exemptions from this law when you're practicing on your own lands. And so there's a question that was posed recently to the Board of Forestry and legal counsel for clarification about whether a landowner is required by statute and regulation to be a CRM when practicing on their own private property. And so if the rangeland management, this is just guidance, it's not regulation, it's guidance. When the rangeland management involves activities undertaken on forested landscapes, then it is encouraged, and guidance is that you should really be working with a CRM or an RPF with rangeland experience.
But just to jump in on that, the guidance is that landowners on their own land are specifically exempted from the professional forester's law when practicing rangeland management, as long as it's on their own lands. But when you engage someone else to assist you and to make management recommendations, develop plans, or the like, then that person needs to be a certified rangeland manager or a registered professional forester with rangeland experience.
So just to see if that makes sense, we are giving you a little scenario. So landowner X has developed a rangeland management plan for their own property. Is a CRM or an RPF with rangeland experience required by California state law? So if the landowner develops and applies the plan to their own private rangeland, they're not required by law to have a CRM. However, if the landowner contracts this planning work, the consultant must be a CRM or an RPF with the rangeland experience to develop it. And of course, if the plan includes any kind of timber harvest plan, then an RPF is required. So again, I think the scenarios help bring into focus some of the nuances that really do require discussion, require understanding the specific situation in order to really get to the right answer, if you will. And the answer will vary depending on the situation. And I think when Steve Smith and Jeff Calvert talk about the plans themselves and the cost share plans, some of these things will probably become even more clear.
And those second two bullet points, so the second and third bullet point, apply anytime that someone is working on non-federal land. So state, private land, county-owned land, anything that's non-federal land, both of those bullet points apply.
I don't see any questions, so I'm going to assume that that's clear, and I'm going to move on to the next scenario. But if there are questions, don't hesitate to put them up in the chat. So scenario 2 can sometimes get a little lively at the PFEC meetings, and in the past, especially when there was the burst of development in the California foothills, a lot of developers were putting in shopping centers among the oak woodlands that required removal and or retention of several large old oaks and or specific mitigation measures to address the consequences of the removal and or retention of the oaks. And so scenario 2 asks, is a CRM required to work on the CEQA document associated with the shopping center? So scenario 2 may best be addressed in one of those policies that I referred to that the board put together. So it's policy number 11 that really helps address this. And what the board has recognized is that the performance of the following tasks do not constitute the practice of forestry or rangeland management. So they would not need a CRM or an RPF, and that includes the development that's related here. So if you're doing non-forestry practices, the development itself is a non-forestry practice. You wouldn't necessarily by law require a CRM or an RPF, but dependent on the mitigation and dependent on the CEQA concerns, then you might want to be working with a professional. So again, it may not be required by law, but you may want to be thinking about it. So there is a question associated with this in terms of if there's a timber harvest plan or an exemption required associated with cutting commercial firewood from the oak-dominated landscape associated with this specific development, then absolutely yes. Anytime there's a timber harvest plan or commercial extraction of the product, then you do require the RPF for that specific aspect of the development plan. So again, you're absolutely right, Rick, who asked the question, because it really depends on the situation. So if it was development without a THP, you may or may not need the RPF or CRM. If anytime you have a timber harvesting plan, then you absolutely need to have the RPF signature on that plan. And a lot of our work on the Professional Foresters Examining Committee relates to the professional ethical application of the forest practice rules in these THPs and how they're applied on the landscape. So great question. So the scenario was just a really general description, but the more details would help you understand what the best answer might be. And again, working through those policy 11 and 12 guidance that the board put out is very helpful as well. So we have one more scenario that we put together. There's probably 10 times as many we could have, Bill, and maybe the folks on the line can add scenarios that you've run into. But if you are an arborist and you're practicing in California and you are making vegetation management prescription recommendations in California oak woodlands on forested landscapes, would that arborist then need to be a CRM or an RPF? According to the law, recommendations and/or prescriptions such as vegetation management plans in the forested landscapes do require that you have a CRM or an RPF. So often this becomes a lively discussion at some of the PFEC meetings in the past, and I think that, again, the ultimate goal is that we all be working together, that we all respect the professional experience and education that each of us brings to the table. I know that I myself have really appreciated working with arborists because they know a lot of things I never learned as in silviculture and prescription management on forested landscapes. And hopefully registered professionals and CRMs bring that same kind of contribution to the table when working on these landscape level issues. So I don't see any questions or concerns about that scenario. If you have any doubt about those kinds of questions or concerns, the guidance on when a registered professional forester is clearly described in policy number 11. The guidance on certified rangeland managers is in policy number 12. Do you need an RPF if you're working with invasive species such as eucalyptus trees? So if you're working with invasive species, eucalyptus trees or other defined invasive species on forested landscapes, and you're actually developing management prescriptions related to removal or treatment or control of, then it's advised that you work with a registered professional forester or a certified rangeland manager, depending on the landscape. Any input you'd have on that, Bill or Rick?
No.
Right. So Rick Standiford adds a clarifying point to the question that was just asked. Do you need an RPF if you're working with invasive species such as eucalyptus trees? If you're the landowner and those invasive species on your own private land and they are not talking about removing them with any kind of commercial operation, then you would not in that case need the RPF. All right, any other questions or concerns about the scenarios as listed there? So one of the other things that Rick Standiford asked Bill and I to consider is, once you realize that there are times when you're going to need a certified rangeland manager or an RPF, how do you find one to work with? And before we get to that, there's a question about, do you need an RPF to prepare a management plan for grazed oak woodland management for environmental conservation? So if you're in a forested landscape and you're developing a management plan that includes grazing prescriptions as part of it, you would need an RPF with the rangeland experience or a certified rangeland manager in that case.
Correct.
And Bill is confirming that as the correct answer.
Right.
All right, I'm looking around the room. Audience says, survey says, great. All right, but those are great questions because that's what I mean. There's no way to define all of these things clearly in black and white, but by working through the real life scenarios you face every day while managing these multi-ownership landscapes, it'll help. And the guidance by the board is really very helpful too. So if you're not licensed yourself, either you're a landowner or a land manager with these challenges, and you need to find a consultant that may have the registered professional forester's license or the certified rangeland manager's license, how do you really find the right consultant, quote unquote? So there's a link that will give you the roster that Eric Huff and the PFEC maintains for the public access, and really recommend that you check references before you do any hiring, and do your homework, because it is often, especially for the landowners, a very personal relationship you want to have with that consultant who's working on your management plan and your long-term strategies. You're going to want to seek personal information from recent clients, maybe even past clients. And the best way to make sure it's a good fit is working with them as you define your goals for your property and for the outcomes of these plans and the expectations that you have from the plan as well as from that consultant. And then ask the tough questions. How is that consultant going to meet these expectations for you? Whenever you're in doubt about when you need a licensed professional to work with you, you might want to just refer to those policy guidance. And for the list of RPFs and CRMs, you can check the CAL FIRE website. Easy to Google or find the appropriate link. And there is a roster there that you can go through. There's new folks added. There's tests coming up this spring. I understand there's only one, I think, registered to take the CRM license to add to that list of 77. But there's quite a few coming on to potentially become new registered professional foresters.
And that last list, if you search on the CAL FIRE website for RPF roster, it'll pull up both the RPF and the CRM roster, so you can see both the licensed foresters and the licensed rangeland managers.
So I don't know if it's the topic, Rick Stanford, or what, but
I'm going to just throw something out for Kim and Bill to chew on. We'll take just a couple of questions on this topic, but then we'll just move a little bit ahead of schedule if there are no more. But I just want to throw something out. A number of professional organizations, professional societies do have certification programs that aren't necessarily licensed. The Wildlife Society has a program. The International Society of Arboriculture has several levels of certification. Do you have any advice or recommendations about working with some of the professionals in these allied fields that are, I think both of you indicated how important they are in oak woodland management. So any advice about these certification programs?
Yeah. So with the two that we've been talking about are the two licenses that are recognized by the state of California and are required by law. However, there is, within the ethics for both of these, there is the ethical responsibility to make sure that you're working and have the professional information that you need when you're preparing plans. And so it's probably going to be fairly rare if you're developing a comprehensive plan that one individual, whether they be a registered professional forester or a certified rangeland manager, will have all the necessary knowledge and tools to put together a comprehensive plan. And they should be working with folks in the different disciplines, and those certification programs are a great way to see that someone has met what that profession thinks are the important qualifications and experience to be able to be a good, solid professional in those areas. So whereas they're not recognized by the state, it would behoove professionals working in these areas to be consulting with those folks in developing their plans.
And you'll notice on your screen there the roster was reposted for you, so if some of you want to take notes on that, just a reminder, these will be recorded and sent out to you at a later time, but just so you have that in front of you.
And to revisit those other certification programs, there is the opportunity for those programs and those professional societies to work with the Board of Forestry and develop their own licensing program. The certified rangeland managers came about because the Society for Range Management and those of us in the profession wanted to have the legal standing and be recognized by the state as having legal standing to do these rangeland management activities on forested landscapes. So the Society for Range Management actually approached the Professional Foresters Examining Committee and the Board of Forestry and worked. It took a couple of years to develop this process and to have it fully sanctioned by the state before it could be implemented.
Let me just throw out one last call for any questions on this topic. Kim will be around for the final Q&A if something does pop into your brains during the last two presentations. But I do also want to remind you that on the Oak webinar site, there is a link to the email addresses for all the speakers, so you can contact both Bill and Kim with any specific questions you might have offline if you'd like, so feel free to do that. Kim and Bill, thanks for that great presentation on what could be a dry subject, but you made it lively with your scenarios and such. So thanks a lot.
Thank you all. Yeah, and if there's further questions that Steve or Jeff trigger, I'll be around.